Hey, Video Game Guru here, and I'm here to talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, arguably the best piece of Star Wars material to grace our shelves ever since Disney took over, with the brief exception of a few books. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the game that was brought to us by Respawn, and oddly enough, a game I'm singing the praises of that comes from the studios of EA. So, to go along with that previous format that I said I was going to start sticking with, we're going to go ahead and discuss story, performance, and gameplay, as well as a more subjective section as well, being the fun factor. But with all that out of the way, kick back, grab a cup of blue milk, kick your feet up in your favorite space yacht, and let's go ahead and start talking about what makes this game, in my opinion, one of the best single-player adventures and one of the best Star Wars stories. First and foremost, story. The story of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order follows Cal Kestis, a former Jedi Padawan who, through terrible and unfortunate events, and what I really don't feel is a spoiler, is a survivor of Order 66, the Great Jedi Purge, in which a majority of the Jedi were executed by their beloved and once thought to be trusted clone trooper compatriots and allies throughout the Clone Wars. The story picks up a few years after Order 66, maybe about 3 to 5 years. The time frame isn't specifically stated. If it was, I missed it. I'm sorry. But at this point in our story, Cal is in hiding. He is in a self-imposed exile of sorts, taking his final lesson of trust only in the Force and staying tucked neatly away as a scrapper on a heavily industrialized planet, making profit off of the spoils of the most recent war. Upon doing your job, one day something happens that reveals your Force abilities and then puts you directly in the crosshairs of the Inquisitors, or Jedi Hunters, as well as the crosshairs of the Empire. Upon doing so, you meet a small ragtag crew, per your usual Star Wars setup, and you set out on a grand adventure to figure out exactly what it is to become a Jedi, to experience life as one who is connected to the Force when there are great injustices going on in the galaxy around you. Upon embarking on this adventure, you travel from planet to planet, places like Ilum, Kashyyyk, and Dathomir, as well as a few planets that I won't spoil for the sake of leaving them there for you to find and experience all on your own, that were made solely for this game and Cal Kestis' adventure. Throughout the duration of this journey, you grow more powerful, you figure out what it is to be a Jedi, you figure out what it is to understand sacrifice, loss, survivor's guilt. It's really a riveting story that fits directly within the Star Wars universe. And with a story slash saga slash comic slash book as long and varied as Star Wars, you are bound to have something that connects with a little bit of everything. And sure enough, for those that are deep into the lore, you will find something for yourself that connects back to an old Clone Wars episode, to the Rebels TV show, to the original trilogy, to the prequel trilogy. There is a little bit of something for everyone, whether you're new to it, whether you're old to it, or whether you're somewhere in between. This is something that you will enjoy as a Star Wars fan. Hands down, undeniable. So, with all that being said, let me go ahead and move on past the story so that way I don't throw any spoilers out there accidentally, and go on to performance. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with the middle grounds of this. Realistically, the performance was a little bit shaky for me. I was playing on a regular PlayStation. I intended to get it on PC, but there was an issue with the download code, so I went ahead and got it for my base PS4. Upon playing it on the base PS4, I had 4 hard crashes, that resulted in memory loss, not of the full game, but of at least roughly 30 to 45 minutes of gameplay. If it wasn't for the fact that this game was so damn enjoyable, I would have been furious. I would have been irritated, and within that first week, I might have just had some gameplay recorded and told you guys why you should not buy this. But it was the opposite, because it was that immaculate when you actually got it to play right. That's the crazy thing. When it played well, it was seamless. It was smooth. It was Dark Souls light. It was Tomb Raider, Nathan Drake's Force of the Fallen Order. It was a culmination of a couple of things that came together very nicely. But when it broke, it broke. Like when it shit the bed, it had analogies that I'm not really going to get into, but it was that bad, you know? And it's hard to really appreciate something or to stay invested in something that has that much of an up and down. Graphically, it looked fine. The facial capture was decent at best. There were some pop-ins, some texture issues. It seemed like this game could have realistically used another couple of months in the oven before they threw it on the plate in front of us and said, here you go, here's your Star Wars, enjoy it. I wouldn't have minded waiting until the movie came out, honestly, so that way I know I could have something Star Wars to enjoy that'd be good during this holiday season instead of a random gamble. Once again, we're not getting on that rant. But that really is all there is to say about performance. It was hit or miss. I know some people that never had a single glitch. I know some people that just had things as simple as clipping. And I saw some YouTubers that had things like their character, i.e. Cal, running through the ground, waist high, solid ground. Not necessarily sure how they enjoyed their experience, but aside from my 4 hard crashes over my 21 to 22 hour experience, it was great. Also, the game plays significantly better on Grandmaster. It seems like the game was tailored for the highest difficulty for the most enjoyable, visceral, and Star Wars-esque experience from what you have seen once again in the different mediums. But other than that, I gotta say, it was a mixed bag. It was a very seriously mixed bag. But my love for Star Wars, the narrative, and the smoothness of this, when it did play well, kept me in there. Last but not least, gameplay. The gameplay within Jedi Fallen Order, performance issues aside, while running smooth, Jedi Fallen Order is a treat to play. I personally had to turn it up to Grandmaster difficulty, being the hardest difficulty in the game, so that way I could get my timing down properly and play it more like a Sekiro or Souls title, as opposed to the easier difficulties where sure, you may have not taken as much damage and enemies didn't hit as hard and you dealt a little bit more damage, but something about the way it played, something about the timing of the strikes, the parries, none of that really added up on the easier difficulties. That is one thing I will say about the difficulty slider as well as the combat. And on those two topics of combat and difficulty sliders, a lot of people have been either lording this as Star Wars Jedi Fallen Sekiro or absolute garbage and a terrible clone. I wouldn't say it's either. I'd say it's kind of somewhere in between. You saw where they got the inspiration, and it worked well. And on the difficulties that were more difficult, that had that short timing window to do just about any and everything, making it a much tighter and more edge of your seat and gripping type of gameplay experience, that's when the title really shined. But on the lesser gameplay difficulties, which I tried out to start initially just to see what the variation was like, it was a little odd. The windows to reflect and block attacks was far too large. You seem grossly overpowered, and I mean grossly overpowered. Like, I expect me to be able to hack through people in 1 to 2 hits, which on Grandmaster you can still do if done adequately, albeit with a couple of glitches with the stamina bar that they tried to inherit from Sekiro. But it just didn't work. But on that hardest difficulty, it felt like I was playing a Star Wars novel with the way combat would pan out, with the way things just coalesced nicely, the way moves were powerful, the way blaster bolts would actually singe holes and murder you after a couple of them. It was nice. Not to mention the powers that you get feel very Jedi-esque. You don't get anything ridiculously overpowering, but you see some of the potential of the character that you have, and the power trip that comes with it. For those that are into Star Wars and know some of the deeper and more rare abilities that certain Jedi or Sith may have, Cal has one known as psychometry, where he can touch objects and understand or learn the history of them. That shows that he has great force potential, and as you unlock his skill tree throughout the game, they may not be the most varied powers, but you start to see that he gets a mastery and understanding of the force. He gets well grounded within the basics, and once you get the basics and expand to some of the more finesse-based moves, which there aren't that many, maybe enhancements, things for range, 1 or 2 extra combos, it may seem basic, but you fear the man that is studied one attack 1,000 times as opposed to 1,000 attacks one time. And Cal embodies that. He feels like you play as a young Obi-Wan who is more powerful in the Force. That's what it feels like as you start to expand upon your Force repertoire, as you expand on your lightsaber skills, as you expand on your connection with your droid, BD-1, which, by the way, as far as companion characters go in video games, as far as the people that you have to have with you every single time, no matter what, that either enhance or drag down the gameplay experience, BD-1 is my favorite droid in Star Wars, next to R2. I could really care less about any of the other ones, but this droid kicks ass. He is adorable. He is merch I am okay with buying, and the way they implement him into the experience with making him kind of your soundboard for Cal's inner thoughts, as well as your walking health canister, as well as your technological device to hack into everything to get past all the Imperial security codes, it's super dope. It's the greatest. I love it. And last but not least, the most subjective part of this review, so take it or leave it, the fun factor. The fun factor is through the roof. Traveling from planet to planet, actually getting to see the planets that I've only been able to view through a cartoon or with my imagination, and actually go there, run on the ground, swing on the vines on the trees, experience the fauna, breathe underwater, murder stormtroopers left and right every single step of the way. It is wonderful. There's nothing quite like snatching a stormtrooper up, using him like a human shield, well, using him as a human shield, to his other compatriots, and then snatching another one up and doing the same thing until it's only you and another stormtrooper left. And then upon him realizing that there's absolutely no hope, he says a one-liner, charges you, or tries to shoot a couple of blasts at you, realize he murdered his last and only compatriot, and then staggers away, realizing he's left alone with a Jedi. Sometimes they concede defeat, sometimes they fight back, but that's the beauty of it. Depending on how vicious you are and how well you combat, you actually get different dialogue. I don't think throughout my entire experience I heard the same thing repeated one time. I think I did. No, not once. Only thing I heard that sounded similar was when I would take out everyone's rocket trooper, which it seems that every single stormtrooper, which even canonically makes sense for me, relies heavily on their big guns because they know they don't have the finesse or personal skill to take out a Jedi. So when you lose your biggest gun, you panic. So every time you take out the biggest gun first, they all panic. It's beautiful. You can play strategically, you can play aggressively, you can play with a mix of the two. The only thing I could say was lacking would have been maybe a option for a slightly darker path with your Force abilities. There was a chance for some morality choices throughout this game that could have dictated the path of your Force powers. They had a decided narrative in mind, which I'm totally okay with, but it seems like they could have added a couple more aspects of maybe powers, or lightsaber styles, or lightsaber techniques, or maybe you fill up the light side of the Force gauge or the dark side of the Force gauge. These are just random ramblings and ideas. Either way, this game was so fun and it pulled me in so much, and my already varied knowledge of Star Wars made it to where I was able to just fall in. It was seriously like I was playing the epilogue story arc to the Clone Wars, or the prequel to Episode 4. It just felt fitting. It felt right. Out of Solo, out of The Last Jedi, out of Ahsoka, the novel, out of majority of the comics aside from the Darth Vader one, this feels like it belongs. It just hits all the notes. It lets you see the light and the dark side, the duality, the gray area in between. It delves deep into those really, really deep lore dives. It gives you everything the Star Wars fan could ask for. And if this game's success is anything of a message to EA, it's that they need to stop trying to gouge everyone's pockets for every single piece of shit subpar thing they come out with, and let things like this get an extra 2 months in the oven. Let things like this flourish. Let things like this thrive. Let these single player experiences that people put their heart and soul into and seem like you can actually feel the passion coming through it, let that be what's created. Not this monetized garbage. This bullshit fluff. Not that. We need more of this. We need about 10 more of these. If they can pump out a FIFA game every year, NBA game every year, NFL game every year, you know what? Scratch them. Come up with updates. Come out with heavily monetized updates so those guys can buy that shit and we don't have to worry about it. And then take all of their hard-earned cash from their loot crates and their gambling and the kids that steal their mom's credit cards and put that money towards Jedi Fallen Order 2, The Unknown Regions. With all that being said, this is the Video Game Guru. Please like, share, subscribe, get these videos out there. I appreciate every single person that listens. It means so much to me. Hit that bell icon for notifications so that way you can know when my videos come out and be some of the first to comment, like, and get the word out there. With all that being said, I think I got some business off in a galaxy far, far away. Y'all have a great evening, day, or nighttime, whenever you may be listening to this. That's the Video Game Guru, signing off.